What do you make of Tony Abbott's choice of words here?
I think they're poorly thought out. I think they will cause offence in the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community. I think the key word here is choice. It's as if people make a choice to move to these communities. There's two categories I thought of when I heard his comments. One is people who live on homelands, that's their traditional country, they have custodianship, they have responsibilities for caring for country, and then there's others that have been moved already to these locations. My family, actually, my grandfather got moved in 1927 from a place in central Queensland to where Woorabinda is these days. You know, they're really well established, and I think of in the 1960s how they moved people from Mapoon to the top of Cape York because the state government wanted to build a wharf. So we're used to these things being, people being relocated, but I called for a well thought out discussion around remote communities when Colin Barnett first raised this last year. I think we haven't had a proper discussion about remote Australia for about 20 years, but that involves engaging respectfully with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people right across the country.
What about the fact that the Prime Minister was making these remarks in the context of a conversation about his efforts to close the gap? He wants to see kids in school, he wants to see people getting jobs.
No one disagrees with that. You know, I think the issues that the Prime Minister has raised would be raised in this conversation with people. The people I talk to are also concerned about those issues. But the answer is not to have these words like it's a lifestyle choice to move somewhere. We're not talking about people moving to somewhere, we're talking about people moving away from somewhere else and moving to somewhere else. And you know, the first wave of relocations in this country didn't pan out really well. I don't know what will this do.
Why is this choice of words so offensive?
Well, like I think about human rights perspectives, and one of the things I talk about particularly with kids having to exercise choices in their lives. That's one of the marks of a mature society. People wouldn't know what the choices are at the moment. You know, they need to be talked to. They need to talk about what are the choices if they move somewhere. What are we going to have more communities on the fringe of our towns, like we've got in places like Kalgoorlie and Darwin and Alice Springs already? You know, we're going to make a situation that's pretty bad already in those places even worse. This requires a well thought out engagement with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community to get a well thought out solution to the issues that the Prime Minister is raising.
The Prime Minister prides himself on a passion for Aboriginal affairs. He says he wants to be a Prime Minister for Indigenous affairs, and has made frequent visits to Aboriginal communities. How do you reconcile that with statements like this one and the one that Australia was just pushed before 1788?
It baffles me. I've heard the Prime Minister speak in Parliament around recognising Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the Constitution. There's no doubt about his commitment and his passion for this. But this is just a poor choice of words. I'm not looking for an apology from the Prime Minister. What I'm looking for is for him to engage properly to work out a solution to the issues that he's raising.
Yeah. So his point here is that it's costing a lot of money to subsidise power and water to some of these communities. Do you think that power and water should continue to be supplied to all these remote communities through Western Australia, or should there be a discussion about some rationalisation?
I was in ATSIC in WA. I spent 15 years in WA. I know the situation pretty well over there. There are some communities, the ATSIC regional councils had to make some of these decisions with limited funds. But I'll tell you one thing, in WA there wouldn't be too many shires outside the Perth metropolitan area that isn't subsidised to the hilt by government. Government subsidises services all around Australia to provide facilities and services to all citizens. And like I say, in WA, I doubt if you'll find a shire outside that area that's self-sustaining without being subsidised to the hilt by both levels of government.
So you're happy enough to have a discussion around this, but what do you think about the process that's been undertaken so far in relation to this move to rationalise remote communities in WA?
Well, you know, it's almost like we've already got a solution, now we've got to work out a reason why we're going there. You know, we've done that in reverse. Like I say, my sense is that a lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are concerned by the issues the Prime Minister's raising. a sensible solution to that would be to sit down with them and let's have that yarn. That's what I'm asking for. That's what I asked after Colin Barnett made his announcements. I ask it again today.
So some people are saying the Prime Minister should apologise over this so people can move on. You don't think it's necessary for an apology?
Look, I don't know whether an apology in actions speak louder than words. Let's do a proper engagement with people. Let's sit down. Let's have this discussion. That's what I'd prefer rather than an apology.
Okay, Mick Gooda, thanks for talking to us this morning.
Thanks, Joe.